basically, for me, I believe that what we are doing is quite wrong, and we really need to look at persons with disability or those people who have problems in our society. Today, I come from the village. I come from Marsabit County. I come from that village where we can still borrow salt, tea from each other. We make rounds in the village to see actually who has not had, forget about breakfast, but who has not had supper that evening, where camel milk is shared in a group to make sure that the few who are less fortunate in the society are able to benefit. That cannot happen in this country today. We've seen positions meant for persons with disability, for the less privileged, the minority in the Constitution. But who have filled these positions?
Who have filled these positions? Yeah, that's a good question. And Mike, because I want us to broaden this particular discussion to not only people who are other abled, but of course that is opening up a door to people who are treated unjustly and fairly in the society in this country, right? Because I know someone maybe in a particular organization, or I have a linkage and a network within a particular organization, so that will actually give me, you know, an S, as opposed to someone who is actually remotely tucked away in the village there. You know no one, you have no connection at all, but you cannot get the same position that you're qualified for, and even this maybe particular person that has a network, they don't have the same papers or qualifications that you do have.
Well, it's all to do with values, isn't it? And I think we today insufficiently focus when we see who is promoted to leadership to what values they espouse. It's easy to proclaim good values, but how do you live them? And how do you live these values of fairness and meritocracy and so forth? I couldn't help smiling when I was looking at my fellow panelist at the other end there, Isaac, and he was talking about being different and therefore having hidden bias like you because of your absence of pigmentation. And my smile is because my absence of pigmentation gives me positive bias, I think sometimes.
Exactly.
But so what? I mean, pigment this way, pigment that way. It's completely irrelevant to everything, or should be if you have the right values, if you're a sort of normal common sense person, I would think. And equally, this one of the village is vital, because here we are now so urbanized, and with urbanization comes anonymity. And look at how we drive. Never mind when we have our tinted screens. I guess, Isaac, we could call it higher pigmentation on our screens. And so no one knows who we are. So we behave just as we wish, because no one knows how we're behaving badly. And it uninhibits us. That's dreadful leadership, and it's dreadful self-leadership.
Thank you. Thank you. Maybe as a segue to also our discussion, because since Reuben is not here and is running a bit late and we're strapped for time, I will endeavor to just read a piece of what he had written for us, to just, you know, as a pulse giver, to think as a country. And when it comes, of course, he'll take it away and continue. He said this, if you can maybe listen. It's a bit long, but I'm not going to read all of it, just a snippet of it, and just to give an inkling. He says, the challenges, or the challenge of making it in Kenya as a blind man, by Reuben Kigame. Allow me to be candid. I am blind, and it is hard making it in Kenya. No matter how qualified, gifted, blessed, or otherwise. I'm not talking about the usual things one has to contend with every day, such as stereotyping and stigmatization. I'm talking about having everything you can and have with regard to qualification and abilities, but not going very far. Why? You're blind. I mean, you cannot see. And that is a problem. I'm not talking about affirmative action, which, by the way, does not exist, but about having all you can have and still having not to count on God alone, or having to count on God alone to make it in life. I am not suggesting that there is another person to count on besides God, but that you realize without God it is not worth living here. I apologize for what you're about to read in advance, but it will help someone understand something. If it will help someone understand something, I will have achieved something. This is partly my motivation for being part of the prayer to hand over Kenya back to God next week. So please bear with me and be patient with me as you read, because tonight, when he was writing, I'm not sure whether I'm in the body or out of the body. God knows. So what does it feel like being Reuben and being blind in Kenya? First of all, people talk to you through other people, assuming that because you're blind, you also cannot hear. They will tell my wife, who is right next to me, things like, tell him I've said hi, or tell him I like his songs. It used to get to me. Now it does not, and I just laugh it away and chuckle back. Please tell him or her back for me that I have said hi. It is equally assumed that because I'm blind, if there is one seat in a place, my wife or daughter should not have it because they can see and I can't. So if I tell my wife to have the seat as I stand, she's looked at as unkind and unthinking. Reason? To be blind is also to be unable to stand as your wife or daughter sits. I have been the talk of Eldoret when I have gone jogging or shopping with equal measure. But all this is child play compared to what you're about to read. Let us talk about employment first. He says, it was early 1987 when I asked for a short-term teaching job at Busidori Secondary School after completing my Form 6. I was denied the job. They kept me waiting. They finally told me to call my dad so they could talk to him. Did I say anything more? I did not get the job. Someone else was hired. Being in Vihiga County, I could partly understand why when running for office to be its first governor in 2013, although I beat all the odds and made it to the ballot, some of my opponents had very bad things to say by way of convincing the voters that they should vote for them instead of me. One of them from my own Bunyoro village literally undertook campaigning for Moses Karanga and made everyone around him and wherever he went believed that I did not even know how to count money, and so I will not be able to handle the county funds. It is too much to entrust billions to a blind man. They will be stolen and he will not even know where to start handling economic issues. It goes on and on and on. I cannot read all of it here because it talks about employment, and I'm also just giving you a snippet of what we discussed, just living in or balancing your life in a very unbalanced Kenya today, equality, that people are, it's a very moving article, I should say, and it's a pity that he didn't make it on time, but still we shall hear from him because he's on his way. But we just want also to hear, given this particular, of course, article, which highlights and speaks for many Kenyans who are going through the harrowing torture of being other abled, and not only just other abled people, but you having all that you can as far as qualifications is concerned, but not getting a place in this society. Many of you, feeling that you're batting your heads on the wall, you cannot make any headway because opportunities are there, but you cannot just get it. And you wonder why, what is wrong with me? You begin to question yourself as a person, and it's really undoing sometimes to a person's self-esteem as well. But let's hear from Priscilla Nyukabi, who's joined us this morning from the National Gender and Equality Commission. She's a commissioner there. Priscilla, are we living in an equal society? You are in the commission right now. Mm-hmm. Can Kenya be equal? Or that is just a pipe dream?
And I think it's not a pipe dream. We can be equal, or we can make strides towards equality, which is what the Constitution 2010 had intended.
Yes.
It was the first time that disability as a ground for discrimination was included in the Constitution. The old Constitution did not have disability as a ground for discrimination. The new one has disability as a ground for discrimination in Article 27. And then it has Article 56 on the rights of persons with disability, including stigmatization, including access, including employment, education, fairly a substantive clause. And then there is Article 177 on representation. Together with the County Governments Act, which is the positions that Honorable Mwaura sits on in the National Assembly, and the Senate 97 and 98. So better, in terms of addressing. Of course, the numbers are still very low, and the National Council for Persons with Disability came in before the 2010 Constitution when we had the Persons with Disability Act. So we are making progress. I think the regret is that we need to make faster progress, and I personally now hold the view that we need to remove progressive implementation of those clauses. All along it's been that they will be progressively implemented by the country. I think a time has come, because the persons with disability are with us. I think the law needs to be immediate, that the 5% employment is not progressive, because what people do is have one or two persons with disability in your establishment and then think that you're making progress. It's a bit like what we used to have of women before. We used to call it tokenism, where you have a token PWD, you have a token visually impaired person, a token, a person with crutches. I think we don't want tokenism. We want real equality. The law needs to help, but the society as well. Education. We've worried a bit about the Higher Education Loans Board. How much reservation do they have for students with disability to go on to higher education? Because one of the things about employment is that you need qualification. So if the education system is not good, then the employment situation is not going to get better. And then also just culture. Our cultures have been very negative on disability. I mean, I come from a culture at home in Nyeri. We used to have this home for the disability, you know, sort of, Nyeri is ridges, so it was across the ridge. And if you were basking in the sun, they would say, wewe toka hapa, you are basking kama the people tunaitwa gaturi, unajianika hapa kama watu wakule gaturi. So now those kind of attitudes need to get off. I mean, si kujianika, there were just reasons about some of these things. And so the cleaning our language, cleaning our perceptions, accepting that persons with disability are equal to ourselves in employment, in political spaces, everywhere. And I feel like we're making progress, but it can be faster. And I think that the Constitution needs to help, and implementation of that Constitution. We've also benchmarked with Uganda. Uganda now, especially if you look at Kenya, where we have also problems of implementing the law. This Article 177 and the County Government Act requires every county to have one male person with disability and one female person with disability sitting in the assembly. As we sit now, 17 counties do not have a single person with a disability sitting in the assembly. And those assemblies are going on. We've gone to court as the National Gender and Equality Commission. But what they've done in Uganda is, if your county does not comply, they call them districts there, then you don't get budget. And we're in the budget cycle. If they say that you should employ 5% persons with disability and you do not employ 5% persons with disability, you do not get the next budget until you comply. We want to benchmark with that case of Uganda. Make it tight for people not to disobey the persons with disability clauses and other equality clauses. You know, we have equality clauses on marginalization. We have the 2/3 on women. We have the youth, again, needing equality in terms of employment. So we want to borrow that clause in the Public Finance Management Act and make it sure that if a county, for example, the counties that now do not have a person with disability in the assembly, then those assemblies should not get budget until they find and until they put persons with disability in the assemblies as is required by law. So a lot of work to be done. It's the old saying, we've come a long way, but we have an even longer way to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but of course we don't want also to never girls on persons with disability as well. Just equality per se, broadly, just looking at what is happening in Kenya, we're living in a very unfair and unjust society as it is right now. And in terms of the commission, of course, also in terms of also the council, where the disability is a main thrust that you normally focus on. We just want to open up the discussion to, is Kenya a very unjust society? Let's hear from Isaac Maura.
Yes, Kenya is a very unjust society, and that's a reality, to the point that you can see those inequalities in terms of getting jobs, in terms of remuneration, in terms of appreciation for equal work done. So we find ways in which we must have undue advantage over others. For example, let's look at the issue of tribalism. The essence of tribalism is just to create a facade around the fact that some people are more superior than others, primarily because they were born in a certain region and area, and they speak a certain language. Never mind, for example, that even these tribes are nations that developed over time from other smaller tribes. Mm-hmm. And if you do, the genome project, Human Genome Project, you realize that 99.9% people are the same, really. and that we have very different origins, including some that are quite shocking for many. So the reality of life is that you just have to struggle on your own account. And people will throw that which will disadvantage you if it conveniences them, when we don't have control over it. So this is the thing that we are grappling as a nation. You know, even the clamor for a constitutional review is around issues of inclusion and exclusion, see? So inequalities, they may range from, and what really surprises me, I think, Debarl, I can say, is that when people discriminate based on natural occurrences, you know, and people go at great lengths to ensure that they will stop you, for example, on the basis of gender and say, you are a woman, you can't do this. And I say this in the subtle languages, in the way we present ourselves. What have you? Sometimes when you're speaking, people are quiet. But if you are of a certain orientation, you hear people are murmuring. They are not very keen on what you're saying, because at the back of the mind, there is what you call the master status.
Master status.
Yes.
Yeah, leave it at that. We want to take a short break right now. When we circle back, we continue with the discussion. Remember, you can head over to a Twitter handle, which is AM Live NTV. AM Live NTV is a profile name on Facebook, and 20686 our SMS portal. Don't go away. Welcome back. You're watching the Leadership Forum here on AM Live. We continue with our conversation today. This is a balanced life in an unbalanced society, or an unbalanced world is what we're using as a subject this morning. And as I mentioned earlier, this was also just inspired by Reuben Kigame. And maybe many of you are wondering, who is this Reuben Kigame? He's a Christian apologist and an author. And also, many of you also sing his songs, maybe, in church, if you're a churchgoer. And of course, if you may be from other religious persuasion, you might not be familiar or intimately familiar with Reuben Kigame. Songs like Wastahili Bwana, Wastahili, or Enda Nasi. So many of those songs that we normally sing in churches, he's the author of those songs, and also he's a consummate author. He'll be here momentarily. Of course, he's having challenges, or he had challenges also with his app, that is Uber app application, and he's caught up in traffic, but he's on his way. But we continue with the conversation. Balanced life in an unbalanced society, especially Kenya. Not just navel gazing on what is happening with other people as far as, or the other abled people, but as far as just broadly the society, the way it is. And as I've mentioned, many of you, you're feeling that this is such an unjust society. And we've had also examples from some of our panelists who have gone through some harrowing tortures as far as getting employment is concerned, because maybe you are other abled as well. But Mike Eldon is on the lectern right now to talk to us about this hidden or handling inconvenient truth as far as a balanced life and in a balanced society is concerned. Mike, let's just hear from you for around 6 minutes. Talk to us.
Thank you, Debarl. I'm just finding my balance here.
You're finding your balance as well.
I've been doing a lot of work recently in helping people with communication for influence. So on this theme, as I was reflecting on it, I was thinking about how this challenge, this opportunity for communication relates to one's own balance and how one balances with others. It's actually at the center of what I do, whether as a director or a consultant or in other aspects of my life. One important aspect of my life is Rotary. I've been a member of the Rotary Club of Nairobi since 1978, and in 1979 we started what has turned out to be this annual rally for the disabled at Jamhuri Park. We've been doing it every year ever since, and I was deeply involved with the early ones. And what struck me so much about these physically and mentally challenged young boys and girls was their extraordinary cheerfulness, their extraordinary confidence and resilience. It was such an inspirational delight to be with them. And it's in the nature of Rotarians to reach out to, we say, the less fortunate in society, and to show respect and to support them. And it was a very formative aspect of my life in Kenya and of my life in Rotary. I also think about this one, we were talking about the gender issue. And I'm married to a woman, Evelyn Mungai, who's been right at the center of women's empowerment. Not rural women so much, but urbanized commercial women. And a couple of years ago, she published a book, From Glass Ceilings to Open Skies, which again spoke of this idea of opportunity, of positive thinking, of appreciative inquiry that enables you to deal with the serious challenges of inequality, but in a positive way. And I think that here we are this Friday morning, it's the Leadership Forum. What is leadership about? It starts with self-leadership. How do I respect myself? What is my self-esteem? I think we have a perfect example here in Isaac, who has overcome these biases to achieve what he has achieved in his early life and now. And you haven't stopped, have you? And you're articulate about it. You seem relaxed as you talk about it, as though you were talking about something else and someone else. And so you're managing your emotions and communicating with influence. And as a result of having overcome these biases and these obstacles, you have earned respect. And you have made people indifferent to your level of pigmentation. And I think that is what we must strive, that we look at meritocracy, at fairness, at respect, and whether you're a man or a woman, or this color or that shade, and so forth. But it must start with self-leadership. And part of self-leadership is emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is all about recognizing how I feel and then managing my feelings and my emotions to prepare me for developing positive relations with others. And this is a particular challenge for the disabled, for the other-abled, as more politically correctly you've been terming it, Debarl. Because if you project yourself in this way, and for which we have a role model here, then your chances of overcoming these inequalities are greater. But let's make no mistake, whether you are disabled or not, whatever gender you are, we do live in an unequal world, and probably increasingly so, with increasing inequality. So this relates to 100% of us, how we overcome the obstacles and challenges in life. There are many in Kenya. I face them, you face them, we all face them. How do we deal with them? How do we have the strength to show resilience, to separate how we feel sometimes, how demoralized, how frustrated, from how we behave, from how we keep engaging positively and cheerfully, and therefore find a way through, knowing that we won't always succeed. None of us always succeeds. None of us. But the challenge to leadership is to nurture all of this, and to nurture in others the self-respect, the confidence that then in turn leads to boldness and the ability to take on challenges, to take risks, and therefore to achieve and to handle the situations where one does not achieve. So for leaders, and here we're on the Leadership Forum, a lot of the people who are watching and listening to us are leaders. That is your challenge. How do you deal with this variety of people and make your organization, your subculture, your society inclusive and diverse, knowing that it's a very contemporary theme. It's a contemporary theme in good governance, not just because good governance spells it out, but because it is a good idea to have a diversity of view, to have people contribute from different perspectives and from personal experience in different ways, and therefore to bring about a higher level of society, of organization, of family, of whatever unit we're talking about. So as leaders, what is your reputation? What is your brand? How does it relate to what, Debarl, you were quoting earlier from Rockefeller? Could you be saying something like that? And would it come across as authentic? It should. And if it doesn't, use this morning to reflect on what you need to start doing and stop doing to get rid of ridiculous prejudices and of ideas about I'm this tribe and therefore I'm here or I'm here, and that it's not to do with those sorts of things. It's not to do with whether I have a challenge in how I walk or how I see. I'm a director of Davis & Shurtleff, and our IT guru there is physically disabled. He's a wonderful guy. We don't see his walking problems. What's that got to do with his IT guruhood? Nothing. He's just one of us. He's one of the family. He's respected. He develops. He grows like everyone else. And we have to help so many people who are prejudiced to relax, to let go, to stop it. And it is leadership that does that. But for all of us who face the challenges, it is self-leadership. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark Eldon, who is the chair of the Dan Eldon Place of Tomorrow, the depot, also the chair of KC University and the chair of Davis and Shurtleff as well. We want to hear also briefly from Isaac Mwaura, just to also tell us how can we live a balanced life in a very unbalanced society. Isaac is up next on the lectern. You have 5 to 6 minutes, sir.
Good morning, fellow Kenyans. I know many of you may be waking up to the morning blues and wondering whether you have the temerity, the courage to face today. Because the inconvenient truth is that life is short, harsh, and brutish. That is the reality of life. When you find yourself in this world different, it is about the politics of the body. And whatever is political is personal. People are endowed differently. And if you are to analyze the human anatomy, you discover that every organ of the body has generated an industry. If it is the hair, they are salonists and hair makers. If it's the eye, they are ophthalmologists, opticians, and all that comes with it. These industries make a lot of money. But a human being is not the individual aspects of an organ, but rather the sum total of who he or she is. That collectivity means that people are gifted differently. And it really means that it is a journey of self-discovery. Because even a genius requires, a little child who is a genius requires to put his finger or her finger into fire to know that fire burns out of curiosity. But it puzzles me to see that whatever that we are naturally endowed with, people use this to discriminate others. We live in a very competitive world, and whatever works for us must be used of essence to give us an advantage and to make us to be ahead, really, because the society has taught us that that is actually what counts. So when you are born different or you find yourself being different, you start at a disadvantage, really. And you have to follow through that inherent challenge. You've got to come to the reality of who you are. Because you may be many things in one. You can be a child, you can be a student, you can be a worker, you can be a husband. But there is what Goffman calls the master status. People will always see you through the lens of your disability, of your pigmentation, of the way in which you walk, the way you speak. But you have rise. You have to rise. You have to find an internal voice from within and to become the youth that you are supposed to be, and to confront those challenges, to overcome the internalized stigma of self-doubt. One day, Nelson Mandela was flying a plane as they were fighting apartheid, and he was surprised to see his fellow black men being the pilot. And it is then that he realized that he had already internalized that black people are not good enough. This is always a challenge, to overcome that expectation, you yourself, that you're not good enough, and to believe that you have what it takes and you have something to offer and to contribute to society. Many other times that your own contribution will be belittled and to be seen to be less and of no value. But deep within, everybody knows that you can. In fact, I postulate that sometimes when you come from this disadvantaged background, people have an inherent fear that given an opportunity, being well capacitated, given the resources, that you can do much more. It is because of this that people fear losing that power relation, and they would want to ensure that you do not have a voice. But over and above that, it's not just a personal monologue. It is about finding a voice for self, but also being the voice of others. Just like Robert Frost talked about the road not taken. Clearing the way, being the first to be counted, and you've got to pay the price in search of dignity, in search of acceptance.
Yes.
You become the standard bearer of others. You become the example. The inclusion will not come abracadabra. It may be tokenized. It may be glorified. You've got to be there to be seen, to appreciate that you have the chance. But you must keep on speaking. You must create a narrative that empowers others so that you create more space, not just for yourself, because the cause is bigger than any individual. And at times, there's always the fear that if I create the pathway that others may come and succeed better, even then, you shall have lived the purpose. For it is Martin Luther King who said that all labor that uplifts humanity has dignity and importance and should therefore be pursued with painstaking excellence. No society has ever been successful without a great leader. If you look at countries such as Singapore, they had visionaries who were able to transform a small island city-state into one of the richest countries from a third world to a first world. And that is what makes me to say with a lot of gusto that leadership almost invariably has capacity to transform society. That leadership is not collegiate, it is individual, and it requires us who find ourselves not being very well empowered to empower ourselves to overcome the challenge so that we can show the potential that you have society and become part of the solution for the future. Thank you and God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you, Isaac. Right, I want to thank Isaac for that particular moving talk there on the lectern. And right now, I just want to also to allow Reuben Kigame to walk on the lectern. I'll just walk over there to try and lead him there on the lectern so that he can give us this morning the talk. And of course, you can see my colleague Steve is assisting him. Reuben, good to see you. Right, we just had to thrust you, into the lectern immediately because we were eagerly waiting for you to join us this morning. So there you have your lectern and your mic, and there's a camera there that is focused on you. And I was just reading a bit of what you actually shared on your article, that was actually circulating on social media. That really moved me deeply, and many. And you're speaking for many Kenyans, and not only people who are other abled, but people who are feeling they're living in a society that is very unbalanced. Yeah, that you can have all the degrees behind your name, you can have all, the accolades behind your name, but still, after you've achieved and worked arduously to actually be to actually garner a position in society, you cannot actually get a fair treat from the society itself. I just want you to tell us, like you did from that particular article yourself, because we cannot actually articulate in full how you're feeling, but you can actually do it yourself and make Kenyans see where you are at as a person who is other able, but not only other able person, but for many Kenyans also who are feeling they're treated unjustly.
Well, Debarl, thank you so much for the opportunity to be able to address this matter. A lot of you who read the social media post would imagine that I was writing this for myself. That is far from the reality of the situation. I was not writing for myself, really. I just happened to be one of those people that would probably not say too much about myself unless there was need to. I spoke on behalf of probably 7 to 8% of Kenya's population. I was looking at the statistics from the Bureau of Statistics. And they don't come out very often. In fact, I would challenge anyone to tell me exactly what the statistics are today. But as of about 10, 11 years ago, the 2008 version that came out, the total number of persons living with disability were about 2 million, and about a third of those were blind. A third of those who are persons with physical disability, they can't walk or need to use a wheelchair. The deaf were about 12%. And so we're talking about a microcosmic representation of our society as a nation. But the statistics are not important. It is who we are as a people that is critical and is food for dialogue, food for thought this morning. It is who we have been, who we are now, and who we might continue to be unless something changes. We have a major crisis, and it's fired by a number of things. One, it's fired by attitude, the attitude that we have as Kenyans to persons living with disability. The attitude, is so bad that, like I said in the article, for me, I can talk, I can articulate myself, but many times when people talk to me, they talk to me through another person. They address me through somebody else. Tell him I have said hi. That's what I said in the article. Tell him I love his music. And I'm right next to them. So they're telling my wife, who is next to me, to tell me. What is the assumption? I cannot see, and therefore I also cannot hear. That cannot be changed by throwing money at the problem. We would just have to change the way we relate to people. And I said in the article that if I, for example, went to a bank or to an office and there was only one seat and I walked in with my wife or daughter, I'm standing here at the podium, but it will be assumed that to be blind is also to be incapable of standing. And so they'll say, I should have the seat. And if I'm saying, I don't want to sit, I want my wife to sit. I want my daughter to sit. Or I want this old lady to sit. The old lady or my wife will be assumed to be a little unkind because they wouldn't let me have the seat. And so what drives, what fuels that? It's an attitude. It's something we have learnt. And so I'm saying that you cannot solve that by policies and constitutional legislations and say all are equal and all that. You cannot solve the problem by that. And worst of all, you cannot solve it by allocating a budget. We just have to go back to the drawing board. As a people, the foundational issues of life are not money solved or resource solved. They are value-based. And so when I come to aspects such as employment and so on, and I look at how people hire people in this country, of course my story may sound sad, but there are people going through worse. I know several people that cannot, in fact, get a job because they're physically challenged, because they're deaf. What do you do to that? What do you do about that? I can get a job, I can employ myself because, I'm a fighter, I am a go-getter somehow. But no matter how much I've been a go-getter myself, I still get discriminated against. And I've talked about my political ambition in Vihiga County. I made it to the ballot. By the way, the news media in this country hardly focused on me. The first blind person to actually make it to the ballot box running for gubernatorial office in Vihiga County. And so you go in already disadvantaged. And the rhetoric does not get any better because your opponents use your handicap to gain votes. It is the order of the day. And so when I came out and said that it is sometimes assumed that we can do this stuff to persons living with disability and they will not even know it. And it goes beyond stereotyping. And it is all the way to the church. That's what I wrote. I'm a musician. I have, 25 albums to my name, but I live like a pauper.
Oh.
It is the truth. I've been recording my music since 1987. And I have young musicians coming in around East Africa and so on who will walk into this country and go to a large church in Nairobi, and they'll be paid 200,000, 300,000, to take care of their affairs. And never mind, they come in singing on a CD. So I walk in with my CIFA voices, 27 persons, and give a show, a musical show, for 2 hours. Not singing on a CD, I'm playing with a band. And the same church that gave 300,000 will give me 20,000. I'm older, by age. I'm older in the industry. I have a live band. So I come to think, is it because they think I have so much money? No, they've made me poor. Is it because they think, that I cannot deliver? Is it that the CD performance is better than a band performance? And I say this to the church's shame. I'm a Christian, but I'm embarrassed. And when I raise the issue, what happens? They tell me, Reuben, you're becoming money-minded. That is what we're talking about. And to the political elite that are untouchable, unreachable, I don't blame the people in office, but the in-betweens. I've tried to reach the deputy president. I can't. I've tried to reach Mama Rachel. I've written it in the article there. I can't. Because the in-betweens tell me, one, that I'm calling the wrong number, and two, that they don't know who Reuben Kigame is. Rachel knows me. The deputy president knows me. I have tried to reach President Uhuru. Being at State House twice, singing, he has told me, Reuben, you need to come, let's sit down and have a chat. Because he appreciates what I do. Can I reach President Uhuru? Everybody else can. With all the funny reasons. I can't. Because a blind man does not just see a president. And so I had a bus project. I was trying to raise money to buy a bus for my band. I cannot even get any of these people because I am hampered, literally. Because in this country, you see, to raise money, you need somebody in the executive, I guess. And so, can I just sit back there as Reuben and say it will be business as usual? No, it cannot be business as usual. I'm qualified in media. I have been in the media for 19 years. Worked with Royal Media when they were starting, when the government was shutting them down. I volunteered time there. I did jingles for them. Have I ever been paid a single cent? No. If they have paid me anything and they used my jingles for a long time, produce the receipts. Nothing. And I have worked and I have gone to school. My master's degree is in journalism and media studies. Who in the media even knows that? Who? Can I be called to give an opinion on media? No, I don't exist. And so I come to this dialogue with that story. But it is the story of everybody else. How many governors, how many MPs, how many CEOs have chosen to have their offices on the top floor of a building that has no lift and no ramp? So how do people with physical disability get to that office or receive any service. These matatus that you see driving, the Matatu Owners Association, to your shame, I'm asking, how does someone with a wheelchair, unassisted, get onto your matatus? It's embarrassing. The architects that we have in this country go to work, they go to school, they know what is right, they still will construct buildings without access. That is what I'm talking about. Is it that we don't know? No, we know. We know. But we pretend that it's not important. And so I stand here today, incensed, of course, you may say, having been denied opportunities, even, in media and in Christian organizations and, name it. In schools, I'm a trained teacher. And I can tell you, even though I'm pursuing my PhD now, I still see hell. And so come to the allocations now, the resources. If anyone can produce a receipt of money they have given to Reuben Kigame to go to school, let them stand up today. Even the help that I received, I paid to the last cent back. I don't owe help anything. Did somebody give me that money? No. And so I drive a car as a musician in a country where celebrities come up in 1 year and they have the latest car. I drive a car that I have bought on loan. What am I trying to say? That we have not done any better as a society to emerge from the mentality that twins are supposed to be killed, that children are supposed to be aborted, that persons with disabilities are supposed to be hidden because they're a curse. You go to institutions of persons living with disabilities, and some of them are like mangers, like stables of animals. I will just mention one incident and then I will conclude. I went to Kibo's School for the Blind in Kisumu County now, just next to Kisumu Prison. Now, it was a great time there. I went there recently as a guest of honor, and I really just cried out. Right across from the gate of Kibo's School for the Blind, today, Anyang' Nyong'o, you can challenge me on this. The MPs in the area challenge me on this. Right across from the gate is a big factory that has been constructed there. Sugar, paper, and all that. And all the dust and the debris and the pollution and so on affects those children. Every day, they wake up to polluted air. They are at school, they wake up to noise from factories, right at the gate. So I'm asking, which idiot went to put up a factory in front of a school? I guess it can happen because it's for a school for the blind. When you do books, you send books to schools. Do you even think about putting those books in Braille, Ministry of Education? Do you know that that school has a secondary section that has no Braillers? Is this rocket science? With MCAs in place, with members of parliament in place, with a county government in place. Who even knows that Thika High School for the Blind, where I went recently, the 2 domes burnt? Does the media know that? It's not important. It's not important. So I'm here to ignite a national conversation. I don't want to hear about theories. I don't want to hear about whether I'm human or not. I am. I stand here asking what went wrong with this country. So I close by saying, you walk today whole, you know, okay, you have your nice office, you have everything going for you. Are you aware that everything could change in an instant and you become maimed? Are you aware? Are you aware that you could have a road accident today and you will need to board a vehicle or a matatu? And so as you occupy your big offices, whatever it is, whether you're in architecture, whether you are in licensing, whether you are in statistics, whatever it is, whether you're an MP, a senator, whatever you are, you have a responsibility. Tomorrow you could be maimed. Tomorrow you might need a white cane and tap around like a blind man. You might need Braille. And we'll be kind to teach you. But for now, Kenya, I think we just need to wake up and do what is right, because we cannot pretend for long. What's 7 to 8% of a population? Right now I have to pay fees for a child that is blind. Why do I have to do that? Why do I have to do that? In a country with a council of persons living with disability, why do I have to do that? Why do I have to pay for my PhD from my pocket with a council like that? And all I hear is we don't fund beyond undergraduates. Did you even fund? Do you even fund the people with disability with undergraduate really? Do you have allocations? What is going on? So what is harder? To do a master's and a PhD, or to do a diploma? And so we have reverse thinking. Just like we have reverse thinking in everything. We pay MPs more than doctors. Why? We pay, MPs more than security officers who are out there in the cold every day. If they are not there, you will not live. The doctors, the nurses.
Thank you.
And I could go on. You can see I'm incensed.
I can see.
But thank you for this opportunity. I just hope we can really ignite a national conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Reuben Kigame there, Christian apologist and a consummate author as well. And you can see his book, if you've not had a copy of his book, The Raw Musings of Reuben Kigame. I'll walk over now to just lead you also to your seat. Thank you so much. And you've spoken quite movingly for us today. I really do appreciate. And Alan, let me just have your hand.
Sure.
I just wanted to inform you that we have Mike.
Be careful, because if we walk this way, we'll be thought we're gay. So we do the official posture here.
That is the official posture?
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
So I'm just leading you to your seat. I have with me Mike Eldon. Mike Eldon is Mike Eldon is the managing director of the depot. That is Dan Eldon, the place of tomorrow. He's also the chairman of KCA University. He's a regular here on Leadership Forum on AM Live. I also have with me Priscilla Nyukabi. She's just...
Hi, Priscilla. You look pretty.
Priscilla Nyukabi, she is commissioner at the National Gender and Equality Commission. Also, we have Mohammed Hussein Gabo, who is the executive director of the National Council of Persons with Disability. You mentioned that. He's here.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Yeah, he's here actually to answer that. And at the extreme end, you won't be able to greet him, is Isaac Maura. So when you walked in...
Hey, Aizo.
Hey, Reuben. Right. So you've spoken quite movingly this morning, and I know also we really stopped for time, but I just want to maybe ask the panelists, because you've raised some of these issues, and they're right here. We have the Gender Commission, we have Isaac Maura from Parliament, and I think he's in a committee as well. All these things that you've spoken about, and you've spoken for many Kenyans as well. What do they have to say, right? Maybe we can begin with Gabo. He raised questions about why he's actually paying for a blind student right now. Well, we have a counselor as it is right now. You say that you don't pay for undergraduates, right?
They pay for undergraduates.
They pay for undergraduates.
Apparently.
Yeah. Apparently they do, right. You can actually speak to some of these issues that he's raised, taking cognizance of time as well, briefly.
Yes, I'll be very brief. One, I'm touched by the story of Kibo School.
Yes.
A school that is for the blind, and this is what we've always been speaking about. It counts on what we get from others. Don't you think the county government and the national government gets taxes from that, and that's a priority to them rather than those poor children?
Exactly.
That is the truth.
Yeah.
Secondly, and I think we are following up that seriously, even if it has to go to court, we are serious on that. I'm sure Mheshimiwa Maura made a comment on that, and I'm sure many of us have made a comment on that. We'll pick up this with the Gender and Equity Commission. We will definitely make sure that who came first? Is it the school or the factory? Why should the school be asked to be relocated? If there's any relocation, it should be the factory, which found the school there. But again, it's about interest. And I don't know how many of us are ready to walk that road. We must be bold enough. Secondly, on the issue of school fees.
Yes.
We found out that there are more needy Kenyans at the lower level, from primary school to secondary school and undergraduate degree. And the money, always a budget is a reason why you have to make certain decisions. So we found out that millions of Kenyans are missing out from that bursary. But there are other avenues. We have the presidential bursary, we have the county bursaries, we have CDF who can take care of that. For us, we are only able to give 3,000 children or undergraduates school fees. It's never enough. I do get an application of 25,000 every year. I have 60 million Kenya shillings for that purpose. So I have to choose where actually. So at least I believe if I give you up to a degree level, you'll be able to do certain jobs and sponsor yourself. That is the thinking. But we need to open up this discussion, and we are ready. As you said, let's discuss it and check what we're able to do. I think those are the two questions which were directed to me.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, your reaction?
I mean, I like that. I like the conversation that he has started, which is a conversation that needs to be taken to larger platforms and to more Kenyans. I think at the National Gender and Equality Commission, we'll see what more we can do. We just recently had the urban transportation project that seeks to make our urban transport more inclusive, so that the vehicles, especially the new buses that are coming, the BRTs, will have to have priority seating for persons with disability, and they have to allow they have to have the movable ramps so that the wheelchairs can go in, and they will be a lot more friendly than what we have right now. But it isn't just the new buses, it's also going to be the matatu owners, the public transport that we have it. How accommodative is it for persons with disabilities?
The buildings that we do have, the ramps, I know that has been a struggle as well.
Yes.
Even here at National Media, I know that is a challenge as well. Now even having people who cannot really make it, to our studio.
At least you have lifts.
Well, at least we have lifts, yes.
But what we want to do at the National Gender and Equality Commission is actually an audit of buildings, and a national audit really, including some county governments. We've actually gone to some county government offices and found that indeed they're on the 7th floor without any access for persons with disability. And we want to call out those governors, call out those counties, call out those government offices that are not accessible for persons with disability. But I just wanted to add something a lot more important for us, is a lot of our national issues start at presidency. They start at very, very high levels, and I like what he's saying about the president meeting him and the deputy president as well, and I do hope that they hear his message and that the officers who work there are going to action that. But more importantly, I would want the platform of the handshake, because you look at how Senator Maura came up after being the Prime Minister's advisor on persons with disability. I think that it is time that our president puts an advisor for himself and his office on matters of persons with disability, on matters of women, on matters of young people, because those are the equality questions that we're grappling with. And sometimes when an advisor comes up, then they can pick up some of the issues we are discussing even before they get space in the national budget, even before they get space in the assemblies. KEDIPA, which is the platform that Senator Mwaura has started, or they started in the National Assembly for members of parliament who are persons with disability. I think we need to put more issues on the table in terms of resolving the equality questions on persons with disability. But for National Gender and Equality Commission, our equality is broader. We call them special interest groups, where the women fall, the youth, the persons with disability, the minorities and the marginalized, the children and the elderly, sort of the people who are at the margins of our equality debate. And also in this debate, we cannot forget the role of corruption. A country like ours that has very, very high levels of corruption punishes the persons with disability and punishes the ones who are already suffering more. The reason Gabon doesn't have enough resources is because we can't allocate more money to the National Council for Persons with Disability. And so our other concern as special interest groups is going to be the fight against corruption. We must support the fight against corruption so that the resources that we have can then be applied to some of the issues that we are speaking about. It's an ongoing conversation. We can't finish it in one day. I think we might need an action plan. The country doesn't have an overarching affirmative action policy. We have special funds that are a bit here and there. Not as much information on how to access those funds, not as much information to persons with disability on how they get onto those funds. And you know this old adage of nothing about us without us. So we have a lot of measures for persons with disability without their own intervention and inclusion. So I think the country also, and the National Gender and Equality Commission is going to lead that campaign, to have one very comprehensive policy, one-stop shop. Because now if you are to advise, and I'm a lawyer, if I was to advise a person with disability, we have to go to so many places. There is a bit on National Affirmative Action Fund, there is a bit in the Council, there is a bit in National Gender and Equality Commission, there is a bit in the Ministry of Labor. We need a one-stop shop on matters of disability, matters of equality in our country. And hopefully, if we postpone engagement in politics, if we let our politics take a back burner, we might just be able to do some of the important things that we need to.
Thank you very much, Isaac. Your reaction.
Yeah, thank you, Reuben. Just before you came, I mentioned that if you go to the website of Thika High School for the Blind, they mention you, Josephine Senior, Mary Atieno, and myself as the most famous alumni. And I want to say this to you. We were with you during your last concert at All Saints, that those who admire you will always admire you. And this world, you don't remember people because of the wealth that they have. I suffer certain challenges just as a member of parliament when people think I have it all. I mean, I have all that I need to have. And I'm sure that is also what you do, because I was really shocked to read your story, because you are my hero. And you are a hero to so many people who are visually impaired and beyond. Many people will be surprised to know that they sing your songs without knowing who is behind them, because they become national anthems, if you can call them. We sing them all over. I still remember way back in 2006 when I appeared on a radio station and asked for your song Enda Nasi. And I still remember you, Reuben, and I want to celebrate you here. The way you came to our school when I was only 16 years old as a school head student, and you would preach to us, and you would speak to us, and you would really give us free concerts. So you inspired many of us, and you continue to do so. And that is the real value. Sometimes the contribution that you've made is not in the intangibilities. It's not in the material wealth. And you'll face those resistances. In any case, without sounding like a preacher man, that Jesus Christ never left a lot of wealth, but 2,000 years later, we still have to find him, and he's given us salvation. So I see you that as iconic. Look at even people like Nelson Mandela. That does not mean that the issues that are personal to you need not to be addressed. But I have seen, even from my own personal struggles, that usually you don't benefit from your own struggles sometimes. And you will never be honored. The other day I took a motion in Parliament to honor Kenneth Matiba for his struggle to name Murang'a University. When I posted this on social media, people asking me who is that, and they were speaking very badly about it, telling me I should bring bills about food on the table. But he contributed. And this country also doesn't honor its own heroes and heroes. It's very, very glaring. But believe you me, just like the late Henry Okulu said, when he was asked that he doesn't have a constituency, he said that his constituency is in the hearts of the people. And I believe that is your constituency. But now coming to the real issues is, number one,
Briefly,
Yes.
briefly because we start for time.
Oh, kindly. Because number one is that there is change that we are trying to do. For example, the new currency that has just been released, Reuben, I was very involved. I wrote a letter to the central bank governor. I did a petition in parliament. Today, it is more friendly. It's yet to, people are yet to get it. I think it's being released today en masse, but for the visually impaired. That is the value of representation. And I'm very proud of that achievement.
Thank you.
But just give me like 1 minute, I summarize. The issue about members of parliament, you'll be shocked to know that we who represent persons with disabilities and other special interest groups, and Priscilla is a former member, we are less facilitated than others. That is systemic discrimination to make us less effective. And right now, I'm leading a process to see how the Parliamentary Service Commission can improve on our terms. We are only employ 3 staff to cover the whole country. We have no CDF money, nothing.
Thank you.
Then the issue of employment, I have proposed an amendment to the Constitution to remove the word progressive. We've written to increase the budget. We just had a meeting with SRC to have anybody employed by public service and a public servant to have a personal aid if you are a person with disability. They have since agreed on that and they are processing. And also recently, the tax exemption is now online. It's an online portal through CARE. I think Honorable Gabo, you can speak much about that.
Thank you, Isaac.
And finally, the census is going to be more friendly to capture data on persons with disabilities. I just attended a 2 days, working group session so that we can increase and we have the real numbers of persons with disabilities.
Thank you, Mike Eldon.
Thank you.
We'll come to you, Priscilla. Briefly winding up, Mike Eldon, your closing remarks.
Reuben, your story is so moving. When I read that article that Debarl shared with us yesterday, it spoke for itself. You covered much of the ground here today. You are a hero, as Isaac has said.
Thank you.
And I don't need to elaborate on that. It's so obvious. My thought for you, as you shame these people who have been insensitive and who are insensitive to people with disabilities, don't shame them too much. Don't show your anger so much. Don't prevent the possibility of launching the conversation. Because if you plead too much and too emotionally, it'll make them back off, is my fear. Just like, and I don't want to draw too close a parallel, look at the effect Socion's attitude is having on the CS. So feel how you feel, share with us, but when you talk to the powers that be, to the Matatu Owners Association, to the governors and the senators, cool it a bit. Then you'll be more successful in influencing them with your communications.
Right. Well, Priscilla, briefly, we're winding up, and Gabo also, you're closing very briefly.
I think is to encourage Reuben to be a leader in this campaign. He has already put himself out. I think, Reuben, let's not stop here. Let's go further than where we have gone. And the Kenyan psyche, we stay on an issue for just 2 weeks. We don't have long attention span. So please, let's stay on this agenda until a couple of issues are resolved. I'm particularly concerned about education. There are still many head teachers in our country who do not accept children with disability to go to their schools. I think we need to focus, pay particular attention to education because it is one of the most empowering, and as Nelson Mandela said, it is one of the tools that makes a society more equal. So Reuben, you have a partner in the National Gender and Equality Commission.
Thank you. Gabo, lastly.
Thank you. For me, I'll just make some 3 statements. You remember?
Let's take 2. Let's take 2 because of time. Let's take 2.
Okay. First, I will want the media group to come up and give us more coverage on issues of disability. That will be one of your biggest CSR. Because issues of disability are really missing. Maybe you're also in the main where you also deal with who matters in the country rather than those persons. I'm not saying you, but I think this should be taken. Secondly, I want to wish Kenyans nice celebrations on the World Albinism Day that is going to be held on 13th June. And I hope Nation Media Group will make coverage in Kakamega Bohungu Stadium. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And what happened to the National Disability Awards that you had? We've never had it actually being carried on briefly. We're winding up. Is it on? Is it not on?
Which one, sir? Sorry.
National Disability Awards that you used to. I remember I have seen way back.
Yes, they're on, but again, they've been taken by, government began it, and now it is through the NGO world. I'm sure my brother,
a topic for another day.
SK, he's been doing his own, another group. So for us, we've given it out to the NGO world.
Lastly, Reuben Kigame, closing remarks.
I'm
Not
very
allowed to
grateful
say
for
anything, timings.
your counsel. I would like to continue to insist that this entire conversation is beyond me. It touches a lot of lives. And so let's engage beyond Reuben. The second thing is that there are easy answers and there are difficult answers. There are things we can do now, there are things which can wait. I would like to believe and encourage that beginning with us here, or anyone in the place of influence who's listening or watching this morning, if there's something you can do today, let's get started.
Thank you.
And lastly, yes, I do appreciate that, brother, your counsel on the emotions there. What happens often is if you lock in something for too long, it will burst out, it will spill out. I've been writing for a long time. My book, if you found it, has a lot of those articles. And so this is not the first time, but nobody is listening. Sometimes, like C.S. Lewis, God may need to raise a megaphone to rouse a deaf world.
Thank you. Thank you. God sometimes may need to raise a raise a megaphone
To rouse a deaf world.
A deaf world. Thank you so much for that, Reuben Kigame. If you've not grabbed his book, here it is, Reuben Kigame. That is the musing of Reuben Kigame. Thank you so much also for your valued company and your reactions on Twitter. And I would love just to also wind up with this Micah chapter there, 6 of the Bible. But he says that, but he already made it plain how to live, what to do, what God is looking for in men and women. It's quite simple. Do what is fair and just to your neighbor. Be compassionate and loyal in your love. And don't take yourself too seriously. Take God seriously, though. Right. Thank you very much for your valued company. Have a lovely day. Living with us is up next.